So there's a whole debate in society about this kind of idea of gender neutrality, that mothers and fathers are interchangeable. From an evolutionary perspective, as mammals, they're not interchangeable. They serve different functions.
A secular psychologist spent almost 3 hours trying to prove something that the Bible has already said time and time again in the scriptures. And I know a lot of people are not going to be happy about some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about, but if we're going to do better, then we have to do better. Let's go ahead and check it out. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Big Blue. This channel where we find the truth, seek understanding, and be the light. So this one is going to be from Diary of a CEO. We're checking out a couple of videos. He had a guest on Erica Komisar. I'm going to say that's how we pronounce her last name. And she's just bringing up all of these informations in regards to parenting, dealing with kids, the growth of the kids, and the importance of it. But it's interesting because in the Bible, in the scripture, it says that plenty of times. So once again, it's important that we
read the scriptures for yourself. Read.
So when we read the scriptures, we already see these things that's already inside. It doesn't take a scientist because God has given us that direction already. Now, science helps. Great. But it's already available to us. So let's just go ahead and get into the first section. And the first section is really important because we're talking about the priority and the presence of being a parent. If you're not a parent yet, think about when you were younger, how present your parent was. Your parents were, or parent, it's a new day and age, whatever. And not only that, if you have kids now, think about how present you are with your kids. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. And if you guys like this type of content and need to show somebody that may have kids or that needs to know this information, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe. Let's go ahead and check it out.
There's 3 kinds of attachment disorders. There's the avoidant attachment disorder. So what does that mean? So a healthy attachment looks like this. When you return home, your child feels so securely attached to you, meaning you've gone out for an hour or two for dinner with your spouse. You come home and your baby is happy to see you, and the reunion, what we call the reunion, is a beautiful reunion. The baby is joyful and happy, and that's healthy attachment. It means that you've made your baby feel so safe and secure because you are there primarily and have prioritized them the majority of the time as the primary attachment figure, that when you come home, your baby welcomes it. But what we're seeing is more and more children developing attachment disorders because their parents are pushing the limits of how much they can leave those babies and putting them in things like institutional care and leaving them for long hours at a time and traveling for their fabulous careers and their fabulous lives at ages when babies really can't tolerate that kind of separation. When the primary attachment figure, usually the mother, comes home and the baby turns away from you and turns toward the babysitter, or just turns away, that baby has the beginning of what's called an avoidant attachment disorder. Now, that's correlated later on with things like depression and difficulty forming attachments later on. The next kind of attachment disorder is called an ambivalent attachment disorder, and the mother then comes home, and the baby clings to the mother for dear life, because the internal voice in that baby is, my mommy's going to leave me again, so I have to hold on to her. Now, that baby is fractious and can't be soothed and will not let go of that mother, holding on for dear life. What I call like the rhesus monkeys did to the wire cages, right? And that's correlated later on with anxiety. The disorganized attachment disorder is different than the other two in that the other two have a strategy. So think of an attachment disorder as a strategy. A child who's left for too many hours by their parent, or whose parent is physically present but emotionally checked out, that baby has to cope, has to have a strategy. Turning away from the mother is a strategy. And the internal narrative is, my mommy isn't present for me, isn't here for me, won't be there for me, I can't trust my environment. And that baby says, and I'm going to have to cope on my own, what we call learned helplessness. The ambivalent attachment disorder that baby is, the strategy is, I'm going to hold on, because if I don't hold on, she's going to leave again. Disorganized attachment disorder is the hardest to treat because the baby has no strategy. So the baby cycles through many strategies. The baby will go from clinging to avoiding to being enraged and even slapping or hitting the mother, and then cycling through again. And that baby that develops a disorganized attachment disorder, those babies, it's correlated later with borderline personality disorder. And we're seeing a huge rise in borderline personality disorders. And those are the kids who are cutting themselves, who are trying to commit suicide. We have a mental illness crisis, the likes of which we've never seen in history. And it has everything to do with how we're raising our children.
So, interesting point that was made. An interesting thing I just want to see. That's just the crazy thing when it comes to parenting. Here's kind of my rule of thumb when it comes to parenting. If you come home and your kids are happy to see you, they're excited to see you, you're doing a good job. I think you're doing a good job. They notice that you're gone. And when you come home, they are elated to see you. But again, that comes with being present, actually being with the kids during that time period, helping them nurture and just being present so that they see you. Let's go ahead and hit up the next section.
So if my kid starts screaming in a supermarket, one of the prevailing pieces of advice says just walk off, or start screaming yourself as the parent to show them. Am I supposed to just ignore my child when it's screaming and throwing a tantrum? Am I meant to drop what I'm doing and go and cater to them? What am I meant to do in these situations?
You're going to have me on speed dial, Stephen.
You be careful.
The deal is, you don't yell at your children. An emotionally regulated parent, a healthy parent, produces a healthy child. So what is a healthy parent? A healthy parent is a parent who feels good about themselves, who has authentically good self-esteem, not grandiosity, but really feels good about themselves, knows their strengths and limitations, and overall as a whole person feels good about themselves. They have the capacity to regulate their emotions, to keep their emotions from going too high and too low. Remember sailing in the Caribbean, meaning they can stay calm in a storm. Is sensitive and empathic as a nurturer. These are signs of health in a parent.
So if my kid says, I want that pack of sweets, and I go, you can't have that pack of sweets.
Well, first you have to, so before you discipline, you always want to be empathic first. So I always say that if you are going to discipline a child, first you have to recognize how they feel. I mean, recognizing how children feel.
My young sweetie. Oh, I know you want the candy. Candy is so sweet. You want the candy, I know. But no.
Is important anyway. Meaning, when you recognize a child's feelings, if they're sad, you mirror their sadness. If they're angry, you say, I can see you're angry. If they're happy, you look happy with them. That kind of reflection is the way that your child knows that you acknowledge them, that they're a person to you.
And then they start screaming and
then
crying.
They start screaming, and you say, broken record is a communication style where you say, oh, I can see it's really hard for you, but you still can't have the sweets. The mistake that parents make is that they go right into the no word. They don't use empathy. They don't bring empathy in. And the truth is that even as an adult, if somebody just says no without first recognizing how you feel,
that's a shut off for adults too. So that's actually a very crazy point that he just made, or that she just made. You guys know, growing up Haitian, all that good stuff. When it comes to discipline, it's always no, it's always bato, it's always agenu, and it's always a zoko in the head. The thing about discipline when it comes to kids, and the thing about yelling when it comes to kids is very true. Like, you shouldn't yell. And my family that's watching this, they already know. Growing up, I was like the disciplinarian, but I took that from the way that my dad treated me. And a lot of it came with beatings and yelling. And as I got older and as I became a parent, dealing with, my two kids, I've come to realize that didn't help me understand what was going on. And anytime I felt that anger kind of muster up, which is crazy because when they say you don't really understand the situation until you become older and deal with it yourself, now I understood because I felt that rage just coming in anytime my kids disobeyed. And I was just like, rage to just like whip up that belt and just go to town. But it's like, yo, they are 2 and 3 years old. 2, 3, 4 years old. What really? You're gonna go to town on them? And the thing is, in the Haitian culture, not the Haitians that are here in America, but for those Haitians that grew up or that came from Haiti that have kids, that's common. That's common to do that to a 3, 4-year-old, a child that may not know any better. And it's unfortunate, but that's kind of how the culture, how the culture is. The way to discipline your kids is really just go off of whatever emotion that you feel at that moment and exert that on the child. And that's not fair to the child. Now, it's interesting because, again, we're here and we're going to the scriptures in regards to that alone. We go to Ephesians 6, verse 4. It says right here, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And then when it comes to the disciplining part, like I was saying, with the anger that rose into me when it comes to discipline, we see this in James 1:19. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So to all of my Christians, all of my brothers in Christ, tout moun yo se chrétien, yo, these two verses are pivotal when you have kids, because the Haitian rage when you're dealing with kids and discipline is real. It resides within you, but we have to get rid of it. We just have to get rid of it. It's imperative because it's not good for the kids' health and it's not good for their growth. There's other methods to dealing with children when they have these type of outfits of outrage. There are methods, and I've seen them work, and I've seen the kids grow to be exponential children, doing great in life.
Prevention, there's so much that we can do. We have a mental health crisis now in the world. It varies to a certain degree. In America, 1 in 5 children will not leave childhood without breaking down at some point, without developing a serious mental illness. Anxiety, depression, ADHD, behavioral problems, suicidal thoughts. So we have a problem. In the UK, it's 1 in 6. In America, it's 1 in 5. It's around the world, it's about 1 in 5. That is a shocking figure. And so, and the truth is, we can do a great deal to prevent that. The idea that we are trying to put out fires without talking about what is the origin of these issues. The way that the mental health care system works now, it's like what I call cutting the grass. Children are medicated, which is basically just pain management. They're given CBT therapy, which again is just pain management. But why aren't we asking the important questions, which is, where does emotional regulation originate? Where does it come from? When does it start? How do we foster development in children from a very young age to promote resilience to stress and adversity in the future?
Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Deuteronomy 6:6 and 7. Actually, let's go to 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love your Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit at your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. Bringing back to this whole point of this video, we see the science of psychologists and the information and the research that was given in regards to the evidence that shows of the effects of parents being there versus a parent not being there, a parent being supportive versus a parent not being supportive, a parent that disciplines versus a parent that doesn't discipline or disciplines in a detrimental manner for the child's health. And we're able to reference the scriptures for that. This was 2,000 years ago, and we have scriptures for that, for all that. It's just interesting, guys. I don't know. It's like the information was already here for us. But I digress. Let's go ahead and get into this next section. That these next couple videos that I want to bring up is actually going to be interesting, and is probably going to make some people a little upset, because we're going to talk about the sense of culture and where we are today as a society, and as in America, in the world of social media, in the world of AI, in the world of just having opportunities. This part is actually interesting because I was actually recently at my younger sister's birthday party. She had a little cookout type situation that we had going on. And I had conversations with two of her friends talking about two different things when it comes to parenting in this new day and age. And both of those topics are being talked about here. So let's just go ahead and go into it. Again, if you get triggered, I'm sorry, but if you do, let me know why you got triggered in the comment section. Let's just get right back into it.
High suicide rates amongst men. Men account for nearly 80% of all suicides in the US. The highest rate observed among 45 to 64-year-olds globally. Suicide is the leading cause of death amongst young men. And a survey conducted in the UK found that an increasing amount of men feel hopeless and worthless, and that are struggling with finding meaning and purpose in the world. The plight of young men. You talk in your books and in your work about how the role of a man has changed, and how that this might not be necessarily productive for the health
We got scripture for the roles of a man. Let's keep going.
and well-being of a man.
Yeah, we've taken away their purpose. When you take a human being's purpose away, remember the purpose for men was to protect their family, it was to hunt in the old days, feed their families, but it was also to protect their families. It was to provide for their families. And what we've done in reversing everything is, although we raised up women, and there are certainly positive things about raising up women, but when we raised up women, we denigrated men. And I also see a lot of young men in my practice, young adult men. And what I'll say is that they feel discouraged, they feel purposeless, they feel diminished. So the feminist movement was meant to give women choice and to balance.
Boy, here we go. This is the topic that a lot of people aren't going to like. Let's go.
Off what was imbalanced in society. But there's something vengeful about it. I think at moments I feel like there's something vengeful about the modern feminist movement. And the studies show that men will marry at their educational level or below. Women will only marry at their educational level or above. And by diminishing men so much in terms of our education and professions, we've basically taken men's purpose away. They feel purposeless. And the other thing is, and I'm going to say, when men stay home to nurture their children. Now, remember, as mammals, we have defined roles. That is not instinctual for men to stay home and nurture their young. It's a reverse of something. And the issue there is that there's an inverse relationship between oxytocin and testosterone. The higher the oxytocin, guess what?
The lower the testosterone.
Yes.
So if we're staying at home bonding, then
There's
our
a reason
testosterone
for
drops.
that. So mammals, when they are nurturing their young, they don't want somebody mating with them. Go away, right? So the idea is that when a female nurtures, she doesn't want to have sex. She doesn't want to, right? So the investment in nurturing pushes away the investment in mating.
And this is why I've read so many stats around men's testosterone dropping when they become fathers. I couldn't believe that was true when I read it.
It's true. There was some studies to talk about how women's testosterone goes up. Women have testosterone. when they're out in the work world fighting like men, that their testosterone goes up and men's testosterone when they stay home goes down. Now, what that's doing for sex lives, there's some research about, that is the next wave, which is what does it do to sex lives? Because men have to perform. They have to get it up, to be crude.
Tell me about it.
And so if your testosterone is low, you're not going to get it up, right? Which is why there's all this Viagra and these patches and supplements and, because it's not instinctually normal for husbands to stay home and nurture their children. And that's the inconvenient truth. How that affects men's and women's sex life when women come home from their banking jobs and their law jobs, do their husbands not want to have sex with them? And, is that breaking up? So this is I think this is the next wave of, we've reversed things societally so fast. And then we hope that our evolutionary bodily responses are just going to catch up in merely a century. And it just evolution doesn't work like that.
So interesting point about that. I accidentally didn't think about that too much my first time around, but there's an interesting point in regards to that sense. It's a top topic to try to navigate from to begin with, because we have come into a new age, new day and age when we're talking about men being present in the home. But I guess we really need to understand what that term means, or what we're talking about when we say men being at home nurturing the kids. There was a time period, which is a generation before me, where men really didn't do much with kids. But again, it honestly depends on where in life we are, and I guess the culture. I'm talking in the sense of a Haitian culture, because the way that the Haitians operate is different from the way that Black Americans operate, is different from the way that white Americans operate, is different from the way that Asians operate, and Indians and other cultures. So for me, looking at it from my perspective, based off of the view that I had with my male relatives in the Haitian culture, when they hear the term of just being present, that means I'm not working, I'm not doing the things that I want to do, or doing the things that I need to do. We're seeing that happen more nowadays, where men are not necessarily taking care. Well, even that sense, we're getting men that know how to change diapers. We're getting men that know how to, change bottles, men that clean, men that cook. And they're not even like, oh, I'm a chef type things. Like, they know how to make certain foods and stuff like that. We have men that are just there. They tell the wives, yeah, you can go, I'll sit home and I'll take care of the kids type situation. Where the men in the previous generations, that wasn't a thing for them. But we're seeing that happen more often now, especially my generation, especially me, myself. Everything that I just labeled are things that I do. So the question becomes, how does that lower the testosterone level? I mean, I don't know. That part of the science, I'm not even sure. But again, it goes in regards to, yes, there is a level of importance. And this is what I was saying to one of my sister's friends, is that when a man is at home, and I think the importance is how often this is happening. Clearly, I have time to do YouTube. Clearly, I have time to work. Clearly, I can make time to go to the gym, all this and the third. I just keep adding up a whole bunch of stuff that that's occupying other free time that I have. But essentially, it's important when we think about the situation, because it's like, I think the issue comes with, if I'm a stay-at-home dad. If I'm a stay-at-home dad and my wife just goes to work while I stay at home with the kids, or I have some type of job where, I may not be the breadwinner, but I don't know. And I don't even want to get too deep into that topic itself as far as being the breadwinner, but just overall, it's just a matter of, the roles being reversed, where the dad is at home, the dad is taking care of the kids, the dad is making sure that everything in the house is being taken care of, where the father, who should be the head of the household, is the one being the aid to the woman, which is going back into the reverse part of just what it means to be a man and a woman, just to be a mom and a dad in a household. And we see this in 1 Timothy 5, verse 8. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, so we were talking about men, essentially. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So, once again, as Christians, as brothers of the faith, you should be leaving some type of inheritance to your family. You should be doing some type of work, some type of diligentness so that you can give to your family. You don't have to give a whole bunch of riches, but there has to be something that's there. You have to be working towards something. And we see this, and we see now, this is interesting because a lot of people talk about, oh, well, this is the Israelites, and then this is what Jesus said. Now, look, when we're going straight to Genesis, in which Adam was given instruction, in which Adam and Eve were given instruction, we see specifically that this is an account for all men. Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. This was before he even received Eve, that he was supposed to work and keep. Working is essential for the man. It's the God-given duty for the man to do. And this is from the very beginning of the word that we have. And it's interesting because if we scroll down just a little bit, we see in verse 18, then the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him. So in a sense, this is what I was saying to one of my sister's friends that I was talking to. This is what I meant in regards to a man being in a household. He should be the one to go out and work and provide. Now, I'm not saying that women can't, but the problem is when women go and do the same, not as a necessity because of, the climate, the market, the inflation, all that, but because she has goals and achievements, there's a level of sacrifice that happens in the household because it's either she's going to put herself on top of the man and the man is going to have to do the nurturing, which is unnatural per Bible standards, or he's not going to fulfill his God-given purpose in regards to doing the work that he's supposed to be doing and just being able to work in general. Working is, like Miss Erica was saying, the genetic parts of a man. Being the aid is the genetic part of the female. This is the natural, just what comes naturally. This was our God-given duties on this earth. So when we go against that, this is when we have chaos, and this is when it affects the children. And the same mindset actually goes into the next part of the video that we're actually going to take a look at. So let's go ahead and get right into that.
In the book, it talks about the difference between mothers and fathers, because that's an important question. And the reason I wrote about mothers is not because fathers are unimportant, but fathers are important in a different way. So there's a whole debate in society about this kind of idea of gender neutrality, that mothers and fathers are interchangeable. But actually, from an evolutionary perspective, as mammals, they're not interchangeable. They serve different functions. And those roles and those behaviors are connected to nurturing hormones. So mothers are really important for what we call sensitive empathic nurturing when children are infants and toddlers. That means that when children are in distress, mothers soothe babies and therefore regulate their emotions from moment to moment. Every time a mother soothes a baby with skin-to-skin contact and eye contact and the soothing tone of her voice, she's leaning into that baby's pain and she is regulating that baby's emotions. Mothers because they soothe the baby from moment to moment, when they're physically and emotionally present enough in the first 3 years, they help a baby to learn how to regulate their emotions. So by 3 years of age, 85% of the right brain is developed. And by 3 years of age, babies can then start to internalize the ability to regulate their own emotions. Now, if mothers aren't present as the primary attachment figures to do that mirroring of emotion, to do that soothing of their emotions, then babies don't learn how to regulate their emotions. The other thing that's important that mothers do is they buffer babies from stress by wearing them on their body for the first year. And then by being as present as possible for 3 years, they actually protect babies' brains from cortisol, the stress hormone. So there is a hormone called oxytocin. It's the love hormone. And it is protective against cortisol. The more a mother nurtures with sensitive, empathic nurturing, meaning when the baby cries, the mother goes, "Oh, sweetheart, let me see the boo-boo, let me kiss the boo-boo." That actually raises the oxytocin in the baby's brain, which then protects the baby from cortisol.
Can a father do that?
So now, fathers. Why are fathers important? So
why do fathers different? Why does the presence of the father differ from the presence of the mother? So ultimately, just before we continue, when the mother is not there, that imbalance in trying to handle stress increases. The imbalance increases when the mother is not there. So ultimately, what she's saying is that, again, going back to what I was saying before, when it comes to the women that are going out and working and not being home as much, unless it deems necessary that the woman has to work because of the situation of the climate that we're in, then that's one thing. But when you are in search of a goal, you then put your goal over your child's development falls beneath your goals in life. And we shouldn't do that from a biblical perspective. We need to bring up our children.
Also produce oxytocin, but it has a different effect on their brains. So for mothers, oxytocin makes mothers sensitive, empathic nurturers, very vigilant to the baby's distress. When fathers produce oxytocin, it comes from a different part of their brain, and it makes them more what we call playful, tactile stimulators of babies. What does that sound like to you?
Playful, tactful stimulators of babies.
Throwing the baby up in the air and tickling the baby and running after the baby and roughhousing. And so that's important for a variety of reasons. First, it encourages things like exploration and risk-taking. It encourages separation. And fathers do this really important thing, which is they help the baby to learn to regulate certain emotions. So mothers help to regulate sadness, fear, distress. Fathers help to regulate excitement and aggression. So when fathers aren't in the house, when there are single mothers raising children without a father.
Oh God, y'all already know what I'm about to talk about. We talk about all the people in the black. Now, granted, there's a lot of people in the Caucasian community that are stuck in these situations as well, but I'm talking about all the people in the Black American community with the single mothers and the fatherless kids and all this stuff. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is clear. This is coming from a psychologist. The evidence of what happens when pops is not home. What happens to these kids mentally?
Often little boys develop behavioral problems, is what we're seeing, that they can't regulate their aggression because fathers help little boys in particular, but little girls too, to regulate.
It's like we see this evidence every single day on the news. Every single day on the news. When we got these aggressive black kids that ain't got no daddies. These aggressive kids that are in schools that ain't got no daddies, that's acting out, doing a whole bunch of dumb stuff. These aggressive kids, I literally, if you guys follow my body cam video, it was just a video that I just posted recently in regards to a 14-year-old in high school acting like she's a thug and all that stuff. Bro, nah, bro, calm down. out. There's regulations that happens with the father. The father brings in that discipline and helps them correct those heavy aggressive. Anytime when they start acting, yo, you better calm yourself down, and they relax. The father does that. With the mother, that never happens. That never happens because they're there to make sure that things are all right. They keep them, calm down and subtle, and things are going to be okay. Again, with the whole stress thing. Why do you think when it comes to discipline, they always say your father's going to deal with you? Because the kids find correction with their aggression and their attitude with the dad, not the mom.
Aggression. So when fathers aren't around, you'll often see little boys who are more impulsive, who are more aggressive. So the answer is fathers and mothers are both critical to the development of children, which is a very controversial thing to say today, because if you're raised without one, you are missing a piece. But they're not the same. And they're not the same because our hormones dictate they're not the same.
So this next video is actually these next two videos are going to be very interesting. This is actually the part that I was talking to with another one of my sister's friends in regards to how we as millennials and Gen Zs or Gen X, Gen Z, Gen X is the next one. I can't remember. But essentially the problem that's happening when it comes to having kids and people wanting to have kids, and how people, especially my generation, the generation after me, I can't remember whether it's Gen Z or Gen X. I don't know. They different generation. This video is going to be talking in regards to something that I was saying in that matter of we're not having kids. Why aren't we having kids? What are the excuses of us not having kids? So let's go ahead and get into that section.
Die in the developing world of having too many children in too short a period of time. They get depleted physically, but they also get depleted emotionally. I'm going to say it right now so everybody can hear it who's watching this. Having children is stressful. It is frustrating. It does require that you are sleepless for the first 5 years. It requires that you can tolerate a lot of discomfort and frustration. So if there was a job description, first it would say the most joyful, enriching thing you can do in your entire life. But what comes with that to foster healthy development is frustration, lack of sleep, stress, discomfort. And so that should be part of the job description.
Yeah, it seems to be such an important principle for life generally that everything has a trade-off. And I think, was it Einstein that said for every force has like an equal and opposite counter force or something to that effect? And a lot of people are
there's an equal and opposite reaction.
choosing not to make the decision to have kids. I was looking at some stats around this. The European Union witnessed only 3.8 million births in 2022, nearly half the number recorded 6 decades ago, marking one of the lowest birth rates in history.
So here we go once again, going back to the scriptures in Genesis, chapter 1, verse 28. And God blessed them, and God said to them, he's talking about Adam and Eve. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on earth. Take note. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Now, there's some. And it's interesting. Some people can say, oh, that means I could just go ahead and have sex with any woman and then I'll be fruitful and multiply, like the Nick Cannons and all those celebrities that want to have thousands and thousands of kids. Not thousands, but you know what I mean. There's a problem with that because there's the level of absence in which you're not there for those kids when you just have them with a whole bunch of females. But that's going from aside the point that I'm making here is that we are given the blessings by God to go and be fruitful on the earth. Therefore, we should, but we don't. Why? And that was a question that my sister's friend was asking. Why is it that we're not fruitful? Why is it that we don't want to go out and have kids? Where the generation before us, they'll have 3, 4 kids, 5 kids. Some of them have 8 kids. Now that seems ridiculous to me, but I mean, if God blesses you with the kids, they bless you with the kids. So why is it that we're just so reluctant into having kids? The thought of having kids or having more kids is just like, oh no, I can't have any more kids. And looking at this objectively, we're selfish. We're selfish. We've grown to be selfish. Not only that, we've been given way too many opportunities in life to do things. We want to see this. We want to see that. We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to be able to have XYZ goal taken care of before we have kids. A lot of people will say financially, but what I've come to realize is that at the end of the day, where there's a will, there's a way. And a lot of people are not going to like the fact that I said that out loud. Where there's a will, there is a way. If you want to worry about finances, sure, that's absolutely fine. Go ahead and worry about finances. But if that's the case, then that doesn't mean that while you're worrying about finances, you're going out and buying every pair of shoe that you see out in the world. That also doesn't mean that you're going out and buying everything that you want, hobbies that you want to take part in. You're going out and taking all these trips because you're not worrying about finances at that point. You could talk about, oh, what's the stress level? I kind of de-stress and stuff like that. No. There's just stuff that you want out there that you want to do, because there are plenty of people that will buckle down and that will get their gears into high shift, or shift it to high gear and do what they need to so that they can reach whatever goal milestone that they need to then be ready. But even then, because we are human, we're never going to feel ready. We're never going to feel like we have enough. We'll feel like we're going to get to the next thing. So it's easier to just let go and just let God. If the kid comes, you'll readjust, and then you'll continue life from there. Now, again, this is under the ordinance of God, which means, as we see in the scriptures, is that we should be married. That doesn't mean we go out here and have kids and we're not married, because that makes things difficult, especially if you already don't know who the person is and you just out here, just mating with anybody. All these things come into play when it comes to having kids. And it's important that we follow the way that the scripture tells for us to have kids, tells us to be around with the kids, tells us our roles with the kids, tells us how we should just live in general with children. But again, we don't rely on that. We rely on what we see in the world and what we're doing in the world. And it's crazy. And I'm guilty for this as well. I hesitated, or I delayed getting married because of financial reasons. God literally took my job away from me the week after I had already bought the wedding ring, my wife's engagement ring. And I'm just like, well, so much for being financially ready, but the wedding still happened. Even when it came to having my daughter, I tell people this all the time. She was not planned, but she was here. So I had no choice. And look at the situation that I'm in right now. I literally just got a promotion at work. Like the psychologist was saying, Miss Erica was saying, yes, there are many things that come into having the kid. But if you're trying to avoid these things, you're just being selfish, which is fine. People can do what they want to do. But if we're talking about a biblical perspective, if you can do. And if you can't, there's adoption, there's an option to help out to other people, to help grow the next generation. The whole idea is growing the next generation. But a lot of people don't want to do that simply for their own selfish desires. And again, let's just be real. It's selfish desires. Oh, I won't be able to go on trips anymore. I won't be able to go out to the club anymore, be able to do my weekly Pilates anymore. All these other excuses in the world. But trust and believe, if I were to go back and know when the conception was going to happen in which I was going to have these kids, I would have still allowed it to happen. And there's somebody that was definitely skeptical in regards to having kids. I even told my wife, I'm not having kids until we're out of the house. And look what happened. I got out of the house. We managed to get our own house. And then 3 months later, my wife was pregnant. And I enjoyed every bit of it. So for those that are still on the fence in regards to having kids, it's really just letting go and letting God. Don't let the world dictate when you should and shouldn't have kids. Don't let the world dictate that. And I say all this just for Miss Erica to go ahead and talk about the same topic. So I jumped the gun. My bad. Let's go ahead and get into this next part.
Really, the turn that society took that I think has a lot to do with what's happening today is the Me movement of the 60s and also the feminist movement. Both of those movements, which had a tremendously positive impact on society in one way, also had a tremendously negative impact on society. When women decided that it was cool to go to work and to work full-time out of the home, everybody cheered and said, great, women have the same rights as men, and now everybody can be in the workforce and be independent and make money and do their own thing. Me, 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 me. The problem is that children were dropped. They were abandoned.
So again, going into the point of the whole mindset of me, 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 selfish. And this isn't absolutely the wrong thing. Being selfish isn't always a negative sense, but if we're really just going down to the root of it, it's a matter of selfishness in a sense of you're more concerned with yourself than bringing somebody into the world. A lot of people will feel that, but we shouldn't let that deter us from being fruitful. And it's actually funny. I was talking with I had playing at my church one Sunday, and then while we were in the back room, the green room, one of the musicians, we were talking about the conversation about having kids and stuff like that. And this guy kills me. And he says, it's funny how God tells us to be fruitful, but we're not being fruitful at all. When we really think about it, the norm to have in a house is 2 kids. And in most cases, you have a boy, you have a girl, and most people are done. And they say, that's it. God says to be fruitful. That's not really being fruitful. We're supposed to be replenishing the world, but all we're doing is just replacing ourselves and not being fruitful. And ever since then, I'm just like, dang, he's right. He is right. So with that being said, ever since then, I'm just like, and that's kind of what changed, a shift in my mindset when it comes to having kids. When people ask, oh, when are you having the next one? And are you having another one and stuff like that? I switched from saying no to saying, if this is what God wants, because it's easy to say no. But honestly, at the end of the day, if God permits to have more kids, then we will have more kids. And if not, then we won't. There's some people that sticks with the 2, but there's something about having multiple kids that does make a difference than just having 2, than just having 1. And if you can, again, then by all means, you should. God will provide if you so follow God and seek the blessings from him. A way will be made. A way will be made. And again, it's not going to be easy, but the joy that you get from your kids is going to outweigh any obstacle that you have. I promise you. This is exactly how I feel, and others will say the same thing. It's just a matter of really relying on God for guidance and to just be present and to follow that structure that I was mentioning of the father being the head of the household, the wife being the aide, then having the children at the end. And again, remembering that the presence of both the parents is important for the growth of the children at different times, because like we said, when it comes to the mother, the first 3 years are very important because they need to know where that nurture is going to be from, where that stress reliever is going to be from. And notice that when it comes to the father, the part in which their role really jumps in is when they build up that, I think it was I forget what the chemical term was, but essentially releasing that chemical that allows them to be adventurous, that allows them to try different things, allows them to kind of be pushed down into doing their own thing and growing. You won't do that with an infant, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. It normally starts at like 3, 4, 5 is when the father's role really starts to kick in, type thing. And outside of that, the man needs to really be the one to be doing the work while the mother's at home nurturing that kid. Now, this isn't to get on those that are single mothers. This isn't to get on, I'm not trying to bash them, but this is more so an eye-opening as to if you have these kids that are having these type of issues, we see why. And it requires two parents to be able to correct that. And not only that, this is also a matter of trying to get people to understand and have a better mindset. And again, moving forward to correction and to working to doing better. Now let's go to this next part in regards to daddy issues. Should be interesting.
Are daddy issues real? Because the term is thrown around in culture like, oh, she has daddy issues. It's typically she has daddy issues.
You know, sometimes what can happen is if you don't have a present father, or if your father is really just absent, or if he's physically present but emotionally absent, you spend your life looking for that kind of Oedipal connection, that kind of admiration, that kind of love, that kind of, for someone to love you in the way that a father loves a little girl. There's a missing piece, right? So you'd say the romantic relationship with the opposite sex parent is a very important part of our sexual development and our relational development. And so it becomes a missing piece for that child who then grows into that adult. If a father was abusive to a little girl, then, that little girl may do what we call a neurotic repetition, which is she seeks out abusive men because that's the only kind of love that she knew or understood. So, you have to remember that children perceive of the relationship with their parent as loving, no matter what the parent does to them. I used to work when I was a young social worker in foster care, and the children who were physically abused by their parents and neglected terribly still wanted to be with their mothers and fathers.
Yep.
They didn't want to be taken away because that was their mother and father, and they perceived of that as love. So however we're raised, we perceive of that as love. The problem is if it's not healthy love, then we can neurotically repeat that in our adult lives.
That last part in regards to the kids, they just wanting to be with their parents, and any love is or anything that they receive, they'll consider as love, and this is what it's supposed to be. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the truth when it comes to kids. I think the way that I was treated growing up, I was given a reference. I think that was kind of my difference in my development, and just maybe I was more self-aware than most kids my age. I don't know what could have sparked that. The wisdom that the Lord permitted me was in me at a young age, but I was self-aware to knowing that the type of love that, or the environment that I was in wasn't what it should be. And so as I got older and into, my youth years and going towards getting married, it was always within my mindset that I wasn't going to repeat that. The attachment part is very critical. I'll say that for certain. And we want kids to be attached to us at young because we want them to depend on us, and we are the ones that's allowing them to grow, not other people, not other entities, not other constructs or anything like that. We're the one that's raising them up, but we should be raising them up based off of the scriptures and giving them the scriptures as well, so that they will focus on that and not fully rely on us who are humans, but on the God who is true. So let's go ahead and go into this last video really quick.
A lot of what you should have done in the first 3 years.
So
you got to be there. You got to be there in a different way. You're not going to, they're not little, so, but when they come home from school, if you are not there, when the door swings open, everybody knows that teenagers close their doors, if they have doors. And that's their way of saying, my defenses are up, go away. If parents work really hard and then they come home and they go, knock, 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 I'm here to spend time with you. How was your day? That door's closed. Closed, baby, closed. If you aren't there when the door opens on its own, on their terms, if you're not there when they're coming out to get a snack or to take a pee or to take a break from their studying, if you are not there then and open for business, for communication, the door closes again. So it goes back to this idea that children need you when they need you, not when you're personally available. And if you miss that window, it's not the end of the world, because you can, a word that we use is to repair. You can repair a lot of the damage, but to repair the damage, you can't go back. It's sort of like going to a confessional if you're Catholic. You go in and you say, oh, Father, I murdered somebody today. And the priest says,
crazy.
well, say 12 Hail Marys. And I don't know, I'm not Catholic, but but you can't go out and murder again. So if you're going to
That's the
repair,
idea.
it means that whatever happens between you and your child, you're trying to be a better parent. You're trying to do things differently, right? You can't take advantage of their good graces and keep pushing them away, pushing them. But repair is possible, because the brain is plastic and it's always growing and shrinking until it's not.
So this last part is very interesting, and I'll tell y'all why. And for my eldest child that I take care of, who is now an adult, I've mentioned this in my videos before. My eldest child is being actually my wife's niece, who came to us when she was 15, I believe, is when she came to us. She'd had circumstances. Her mother had passed when she was 10. And everything that the doctor was saying just now, I've experienced. And I knew that when we had her, that a lot of those things is exactly what she's talking about. Just that level of absence of the parent being there, or the parent that she had being there is now no longer here. So so there's going to be a lot of those closed doors. There's going to be a lot of those lacking in the relations on their part. So they just have that defensive wall that's up. I've seen that a lot over the past couple of years, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but as the years have continued, it was really just a matter of waiting till that door was opened and just being there. I could have been there more. I should have been there more. I'm always going to feel like I should have been there more. But I will say that it wasn't a case where I was never there. Well, we were never there. It's important, especially as they're getting older, that you're available, because that initial 3 years, if nothing was there initially, then it's going to be hard to build up, but you can rebuild it. When it comes to children, they're malleable like that. They are. Some things will be solidified, but there is a forming that can happen. Again, a second chance that can happen with your kids to be able to get them not just on your side, but build that relationship, rekindle that relationship, just to get that second chance. But it's important that you make the effort to do so, and don't force it, but more so just be available when they need you. So overall, this segment, I know this was a lot longer than I had intended it for it to be, but I think it was just imperative that we talk about all of these things, all these topics, and again, bringing the scriptures up, because we need to know the scripture. All this information is science over the years and stuff like that, when literally we had the scripture that's been here for thousands of years and is providing essentially the information that was needing the understanding the difference in the roles between a man and a woman, what they should be doing, what they can do, but probably would prefer not to do. Not only that, but understand the institution of marriage. A mother and a father being in a household is important when you're having a child, especially at birth. So that is another thing. Maybe not, sleeping around all willy-nilly and just dealing with the flesh, but being self-aware and understanding the future and being available for said child. And not only that, when you're being there for a child, you have to remove every selfishness that you have, things that you want to do. You can still keep things on the back of your mind. You can still keep, tabs of things you want to complete in life and work solely towards it, but it shouldn't come at the cost of you raising your child. Which, unfortunately, based off of the way that the world is right now, is what we're seeing heavy with females. With the women's in the household, with the wives of the household. We see that happen a lot in these households where their goals, their needs takes priority over the children. And from a biblical perspective, that cannot be the case. It shouldn't be the case, unfortunately. Now, with that being said, men, we should be working, but it cannot come at the expense of not being available for the kids, in which now the wife now has to do absolutely everything for the kids. I don't think it should be to that degree. By no means. You should still be available. You still have to teach them. You still have to instruct them. You still, going back to Ephesians 6, we still have to instruct and discipline them in the way of the Lord. It's important that both parents are there, but one, we got to have both parents, and two, they also have to be following the hierarchy, because God, then man, then woman, then children. When we have this as our kind of slate, things just go up from there. Now, I know a lot of y'all may feel judged right now, and it's really not condemnation, guys. It's conviction, and where there's conviction, there's grace. There's opportunity to learn. There's opportunity for growth. So, interesting video nonetheless. Yeah, let me know in the comment section what y'all think. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Take it easy. Peace.